Welcome. Today we are examining Michael Eugene Cantrall's poem, There's No One Left. Our objective is to dissect how the text constructs the Burkean sublime through its linguistic architecture, rather than relying on its graveyard setting. For our purposes, the Burkean sublime is the specific state of aestheticized unease where the beauty of language contrasts sharply with the terror of its subject. It is the tension between awe and dread. Before we can deconstruct the poem's structural blueprint, we must establish a sensory baseline. We have to feel the acoustic and atmospheric weight of the text in its entirety. As I read the piece, pay close attention to the pacing. Listen for the heavy phonetic structure engineered into the syllables. True critical analysis requires absorbing the weight of the atmospheric dread before we pull apart the mechanics of its construction. The crimson sward in the country graveyard quakes and vibrates wickedly on the night, while howls and growls weave evil below sod, where there's no one left to make an imprint. They dwell in a charnel well beneath, courtesy of a god of many laws, who by the swish of a switch disappear when there's no one left to make a footprint. The immediate atmospheric impact of that final line is a convergence of sound and total silence. That lingering unease demands a structural explanation. Let's take this to the workbench. Some early readers categorized this piece as excellent blank verse, but a closer look at the meter reveals a deliberate subversion of that form. Traditional blank verse relies on unrhymed iambic pentameter. Its steady rhythm suggests natural, elevated human speech. Cantrall breaks this expectation with a strict slant rhyme structure. Notice the pairings: sward and graveyard, sod and god. These near rhymes prevent a comfortable melodic resolution. This constant sonic friction maintains a state of tension. The rhythmic instability of the verse actively mirrors the quaking, vibrating ground that is described in the text itself. That tension extends to the phonetics, where sound functions as the physical imagery itself. Consider howls and growls. The friction of the h and vibration of the g create a guttural resonance, projecting the illusion of predatory movement. This hollow resonance transitions into the harsh v and ul sounds of weave evil, mimicking shifting, unstable dirt. We also see an engineering of time. Cantrall uses a heavily curated lexicon, drawing on Elizabethan and Victorian phrasing to create a formal, historical distance from the modern era. This deliberate atmospheric density points directly to high Gothic and Romantic traditions, channeling the heavy, tactile nature of predecessors like Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Yet De Palm bridges high Gothic supernaturalism with a starker tradition. Its cold, existential finality echoes the mid-20th century confessional mode of poets like Sylvia Plath. We can see this synthesis at the word level. Look at crimsoned. Here, a past participle acts as a verb turned adjective. Cantrall's grammatical choice insists the sward was actively stained, made crimson by some prior, unseen violence. The same precision applies to sward. In graveyard poetry, an expanse of short grass serves a specific function. It emphasizes the thin, fragile organic threshold, separating the living observer from the dead below. Beneath that sward is the charnel well. In traditional pastoral verse, a well is a source of life and water. Cantrall perverts this symbol into a deep reservoir for the dead, a depth from which there is no ascent. These separate images are contained within the structural integrity of the octet, specifically held together by the refrain concluding lines 4 and 8. Line 4 ends with an imprint, while line 8 concludes with footprint. A scholar notes the vital shift. An imprint is a static presence. A footprint implies a forward journey. By weaving this historically charged vocabulary through that strict refrain, the poet methodically erases both the static existence and the forward momentum of the human subject, finalizing the scene's total isolation. We can prove this meticulous construction by examining the artifact's own evolution. The author's drafting history serves as a visible blueprint of the poem's mood. The most revealing progression occurs in line 7. On March 14, 2026, the draft read, who, by the wish of a witch, disappear. The phrase wish of a witch relies heavily on standard supernatural tropes. It injects human desire and magic into the narrative. But look at the final, published edit. Swish of a switch. The poet maintains the sonic rhythm, but entirely strips away the supernatural. Magic is replaced by an indifferent, punitive, and mechanical action. This shift away from the human is mirrored exactly in line 6, as we track the evolution of the text's divine figure. Originally drafted as a god of many flaws, the deity possessed human-like fallibility. A flawed god is imperfect, meaning it is still somewhat recognizable to a human observer. Hardening the word flaws into laws removes that humanity entirely. What remains is a cold, unyielding, administrative system of disappearance. The poem's deepest horror is achieved precisely through this process of revision. By methodically editing out all of the supernatural agency, the text instead exposes a terrifying, completely mechanized system of fate. When we pull back and view the finished artifact, we see how the archaic lexicon, the destabilizing slant rhymes, and the precise mechanical edits operate together as the engine of the text. A rigorous piece of scholarship recognizes that a well-engineered text uses intentional ambiguity. It is designed to sustain multiple, valid interpretations simultaneously. We can read the God of many laws overseeing the charnel well through a theological lens, viewing the poem as a religious critique of a deaf, purely administrative deity. We can apply a secular lens, interpreting this God as a metaphor for the unfeeling mechanical laws of physics and inevitable bodily decay. Or we can read it through a pure genre lens, viewing the figure as a strict Gothic antagonist presiding over a literal, physical midnight tableau. This interpretive openness produces a profound, unresolved desolation. As one early reader accurately noted, the text evokes the sensation of screaming to a God that isn't listening. Poetry is an environment where certainty is intentionally suspended, forcing the reader into active participation with the text. The sense of dread in this work arrives through the mechanical precision of its structure, rather than through explicitly stated terrors like ghosts. The Gothic sublime is achieved as the language physically mimics the cold, absolute erasure of our imprint from the world.